Good evening and welcome to the Black Robe podcast. I'm Carol Mitchell, and I'm excited to be here tonight with Anthony Clarke. He is the principal and I would say the architect of an amazingly successful program at Summit Olympus. It is a brand of schooling, of education that is unique and effective for specific types of young people. We're going to talk to you tonight about the fact that they're recruiting ninth graders, that the program has had some amazing success stories. We want to share a few of those, and maybe distinguish charter schools from a typical public school curriculum that most of us were indoctrinated into and survived. Some of us actually survived and some thrived. All right, so we'll give credit for those who thrived in that environment. But thank you for being here with us, Anthony. You've given me permission to call you Anthony. Mr. Clarke.
Thank you for having me.
You know what that reminds me of,
No,
right?
Crazy Joe.
Is it Stand and Deliver? What is it? Stand and Deliver? Whatever the movie was.
Lean on
that,
me.
Lean on Me. Morgan Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mr. Clarke.
Whole career.
So why don't we start with some preliminaries for people who don't know you and might like to have a little bit of your history. How in the world did you get to Tacoma into this role? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, wow. How far do you want me to go back? I always start with my parents, pay homage where it belongs. My parents are both from Barbados, West Indies, and they immigrated to Brooklyn, New York, where I was born and raised and spent my life in my early career. And so I too am a product of public school education from Brownsville, Brooklyn. If you know, Brownsville is one of those places you hear about on the news, not always for the best things, but we produce a lot of bright spots there too. I will, shout out Brownsville, Brooklyn, always. It was there. Education became super important to me. It was always important to my family. There are many of us who are in education. My sister's a guidance counselor in Brooklyn. I have a cousin who's a principal at probably 27 in Birmingham, Alabama. So it's something that is in the forefront of our minds. I came from public school system in New York. I taught in public school system in New York, large comprehensive high schools, 5,000 people in a building. And even I worked in a small public school with 150 people in the building. So my experience has a wide range. It was the end of my time in New York. I didn't know it would be. I was at a high-performing charter network. And it was there. It was the first time I was coached as a professional. I mean, coached. They came in and they observed me and they gave me feedback for the sole purpose of seeing me grow as a professional because they knew it would benefit the students I served. I've been observed before for the point of rating. I had rating officers, but honestly, this was the first time in my professional career I was coached. The growth I saw in myself really humbled me because it was at that point, this is 7 years into a career, when I realized I was not good enough. I was not deserving of being in front of the students who I had served 7 years prior. How much better could I have been for those thousands of children had I been coached? And that became a passion of mine. How do I share this knowledge? How do I pass it on? Particularly so that people who look like me benefit from that skill set and that service. And then Summit Olympus came calling. They said, wait, you come highly recommended, and we think we want you to come work in one of our schools, either in Seattle or in Tacoma. Ultimately, the Tacoma school chose me, and I started there as the Dean of Culture and Instruction. And it was there, we started to, they really worked with me and they let me overhaul some of the things we did academically. And I would say culturally, a big culture shift took place in the school. And the following year, I was the principal of that school.
Now, so you're in New York,
Mm-hmm.
just outside of Brooklyn. which I love Brooklyn. And last time I was in Brooklyn, somebody took me somewhere and I had me some chicken livers and gravy. That's how I remember things. It's a food. It's like associated with food, a food experience.
Mm-hmm.
But how did they find you, Summit Olympus? I mean, that's a long distance from meeting somebody in Seattle, Tacoma, and having to go all the way to Brooklyn. So had you had some sort of national exposure, or you've been introduced, or how did this happen?
I think I was introduced kind of haphazardly. I believe that the school being relatively new, maybe 3 or 4 years old at the time in Washington, wanted to bring in someone with experience from, a really successful charter school. So there was someone else who worked with me. He was a principal of one of the schools in Brooklyn, and he joined the Summit organization. And that's how I found out about Summit. So then when my name and resume came across, they were like, well, we really want to interview this person and see if it is what they say it is. And they realized that I was offered the same role in my school in Brooklyn that I would be taking in Washington. So they were like, we should.
Well, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they reached out. I'm glad you're here. I don't know if you will find the chicken livers here that you have available there, or the good Caribbean food here that you have available there. But I'm glad you're here. I think it would be important for our audience to know what is the big difference between what happens at Summit Olympus Charter School as opposed to what the ninth graders that you are now trying to recruit into this year's program. What's the difference in experience that those ninth graders are going to have?
I can only speak to the experience that the students in my care receive. And I think it's by design. We are focused on making sure our students know that they're prepared for, we call it the concrete next step, life after high school. A good baseline assessment is like, will you be accepted into a four-year college or university? So that's the trajectory. Everyone doesn't have to go to a four-year college or university, but we know that it's possible to get everybody into a four-year college or university. If they're sitting for the right kind of classes, if they're taking part in the appropriate challenges all 4 years of high school, you get ready. You are prepared. It is something that is attainable and accessible if we put the right kind of supports around not just you, but your family. So there are things that we do by design that allow us to be successful. Everything, we start talking about college and what people want to do day one. And we start supporting families in this journey day one. We help them with financial aid applications, and we help them with the college application process. All of these things that sometimes, if you're a family who you don't have this experience in your toolkit, it really is, it becomes a dead end. It becomes a barrier to you and your students and to their future. And that's something that is easily overcome with the right kind of support. So we also think of the habits of success. Like, what are the habits of success that people need to have in order to be successful? What are the values that they need to have? And then we think about what are the skills that they need to have. And so you might want people to have all of these things, but until you teach them and show them and give them feedback on how they perform in these three, I would say, buckets or key areas, how could someone be successful unless you taught them how to be? So we start teaching students day one habits of success. We have structures built into our day and built into our program that allow us to do these things. So if they're not built into the day, everything might happen haphazardly. And I would say that's the big difference. Also, who has access to rigorous classes? I don't think it's for me to decide, because the science shows that just having access to an AP course allows you to do significantly better in college courses. So I don't get to decide who has access. My job is to give everyone access to those classes.
But what does that look like in practice? If a student wants to step into an AP English class,
Mm-hmm.
is there no prerequisite that they have to meet? They can simply, because of their interest and motivation, just go in and try it and see how they do?
They all take AP classes. Definitely by senior year, everyone will be in AP classes.
I see.
It's twofold here. One, you've been with me since 9th grade. You're not ready for AP classes by 11th grade. That's on me.
Ooh, oh no, you didn't. Just
I
take responsibility.
did. When I had students, when I was teaching history to 5th graders or to 11th graders or to overage, undercredited students all over New York City, what they couldn't do in the beginning of the year, I could say that's the middle school, I could say that's the school down the street. But what they couldn't do at the end of the year, that's on us. That's on me. That's on us as a community. And we can't continue to pass that on to students or families or things that happen before. We have to start to take accountability and ownership over that. So I think
how do you get teachers to embrace that philosophy? I'm sensitive to a report that I saw recently on one of the news channels that the teacher shortage is in critical. It's a critical issue, and one of the reasons teachers are retiring, not entering the profession, of course, has to do with what we pay them.
Mm-hmm.
And then this little issue called respect,
Mm-hmm.
and unrealistic expectations around outcomes. So I would imagine that if you are saying at Summit Olympus, the teachers, the educators actually take responsibility for what their students aren't able to do at a certain point. That sounds rather revolutionary to me, or maybe it isn't, because I'm not an educator. You tell me, is that revolutionary thinking?
It sounds revolutionary thinking, but the idea of it sounds new if you say revolutionary. This is not new school age thinking. This has existed for a long time. Actually, the high school I went to, I was probably around 20 years before I went to it, had a similar philosophy. And this is in Harlem, New York, and a Barrio, offshoot of with the young lords and groups like that. We're doing and thinking that critical thinking aspect. So I would say then it might have been revolutionary, but we're talking 30, 40, 50 years later. I don't know that we can still claim that it is, I will say it is best practice. So to answer the question about how do we get teachers to focus where our focus is, it's twofold. One, teachers decide where they want to work. Teachers have a lot of power in deciding where they want to work. And the students are the students, but is the bones of the school what you want it to be. You find like-minded people who have similar morals and values and goals as you, and you get the right people in the right seats, and you can accomplish amazing things. So all credit to the amazing teachers that are currently employed or previously have been employed in this work and in this effort. Because like you named, it is not easy work. But neither is being in a place where you feel like you're disrespected or your coursework isn't respected, or, that's not easy work either. To go, 181 days is a long time to be unhappy, I would say, for a teacher or a student. So how
you survived the pandemic, though.
Did we? Yeah.
Somehow, because adding the online remote learning element to education, that probably put a lot of folks over the edge.
Oh, yeah. Again, I spoke about structures earlier. If you have structures, not that it was easy, I'm not even going to sit here and lie to anyone, But we had structures in place that allowed our transition to be a lot smoother than what we saw nationally. Our students all have access to an online platform already. All of their work had already existed online. We still teach in person, but if you're a parent and you're working and your kid comes home and say, I don't have any homework today, you could go on their platform, you can check it from your phone and say, like, I know exactly what you're missing. I can even see the feedback the teacher gave you, and I can see how long ago they gave it to you. This feedback's been sitting here for 2 days, and here's the rubric, and here's exactly what you need to do. So you sound like an expert all of a sudden, and you're just reading it from your phone. Our teachers are doing and inputting that information, and it's transparent. So what students needed to do and where their help were and where their resources were was readily accessible by students and families. But I will say one thing that helps teachers want to be in certain places: when you feel like you're not alone. When you take people off an island and you bring them into a community, you don't have to teach your class and be solely responsible for the outcome. We do it together. We meet in many different groups. We meet in grade level teams. We meet in course level teams across the network, and we decide and we figure out where are students struggling, what supports do they need, and how do we get this to them. So it's rare that somebody will feel like they're alone. Those are 2 or 3 groups I just named. That's excluding the coaching they're going to get. So we're in classrooms, we're giving observations, we're giving feedback. And it is, I think, those structures that let people know, like.
So tell me about your stars, because I know you're proud of some of the young people who have come through your program, who have graduated or are graduating, getting closer to that vision that they set for themselves when they entered. So just open up a window and let us look into Summit Olympus and see some of your stars.
I will start with the students who just walked into their first day at Olympus today. Actually, we had new student orientation. Many of these students found Olympus because they decided for themselves that they wanted something different. So many of our students are either siblings of students who graduated or students who find us on their own. Because I think students are searching. You know yourself. If you're somebody who you want a large school setting, a lot of people thrive in that setting. They do better than do well. They thrive in that setting. We're a smaller setting, and a lot of people don't thrive in a larger setting. So my school becomes really attractive to them. And then they also probably don't believe all the college accessibility and graduation until they get there. So my first stars are all the students who, the 50 or so students who walked into the doors this morning and said, I wanted to try something new. And I happened to connect with maybe half a dozen families at the end of the day over the phone just to check in and see how first day went. And they're like, I'm surprised how much they liked it. They don't remember the last time their students, these are high schoolers, came home and were happy to meet their teachers and were happy, excited for the upcoming year. So those are my new shining stars. The alumni.
So is there still time I know you've been in a recruitment process with our good friends at TG and YBMW, helping out with that effort. Congratulations on that. So are you still taking new students, or today was orientation and you're done now?
So we will hold our enrollment open while we have seats until late October. I would say October 28th might be our cutoff date. So people have time to go.
You have a rolling admission?
We do.
Okay.
We do. It doesn't last all year because, again, we're intentional and by design. We know we're bringing people into a culture, and when you want to bring people into a culture, you kind of have to do it all at the same time. When you bring somebody in on the back end, they are like, you're speaking another language. These are all foreign ideas to me, and I'm so used to doing it a certain way. Having them start fresh in the beginning of the year really works better.
Well, a lot of young people, I think my grandchildren run the gamut from having gone through a traditional public school experience, and one of them got picked off, that's what I call it, by one of the private schools and is off to the East Coast now doing her college thing.
Congrats.
Another one stayed completely online for the first 2 years and now is in the Running Start program. And now we have this one, and this is the one that I think I have the most, it'll be interesting to watch the transition, who liked the remote learning and now has to go back to the classroom. She's in Renton, in the Renton School District, so not here, close enough to go to Summit. Or
Right.
I would tell her mother, bring that child and put her in Summit Olympus.
We
And
have
she
a
has a
sister
lot of
school.
trepidation about it, a lot of hesitation about being back in the classroom after 2 years almost of not having to go. What are your recommendations about that?
It's tough. It really is difficult. And this is when we speak about structures and systems. Hopefully that school has a structure in place for social emotional work. We do. We have mentors. All of our students are paired with a mentor, and they have a mentor group. So it's about 23 to 24 other students and one adult who they're going to stay together their 4-year journey. What that does is you start your day with this group. They become a family. When you go around the mentor groups, they all seem a little bit different. They all have slightly different rituals. And it's amazing to see by junior year, these students support each other. Before they ask their teachers for help, they're going to their mentor group for help. And they're saying, I know so-and-so is behind on this project and they were sick and they missed 2 weeks and I'm going to help them get caught up. We have a plan on how to support them. It's really amazing. Your students walk around. Is it so-and-so, did you turn that work in? No, I'm going to do it today. Like, no, take out your laptop. We're going to do it now because it's been 3 days already. I'm like, wow. I'm always impressed by it, but we built the structure so that they can do that. So now they do that. We do circles, social emotional circle group where they're talking to each other, they're bonding, they're building these relationships, and they get to know each other beyond the surface level. They get to show empathy and compassion and appreciation for each other. So hopefully, your grandchild has a school that has a system like this in place. So in my school, when you see somebody sitting alone, before I get to them, 5 students walk over there and say, hey, you okay? You need anything? You all right? Come sit with us. What are you into?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to play this game? Oh, we don't really play that game. But these people over here, I'll introduce you. They like that game. And sometimes students say, oh, I just want some alone time. And then, it's okay, I respect that. They say, no, you've been sitting over here 3 days by yourself. We have to come outside, play basketball, come play a game of chess, table tennis or foosball they love. We have clubs and groups and things like that, because to walk into a building and not feel welcome is daunting. To walk into a place where you feel like I'm giving up a freedom and control of myself is scary. So we have to make sure that that's not the environment we're having our young people walk into, because that's not the environment, like we spoke of earlier, that teachers are walking away from the profession because they feel that. So if it's not good enough for the adults, it's surely not good enough for our young folks. So
Wow, that's a powerful statement you made. If the teachers are quitting, imagine what the young people are going through, who in theory haven't fully even developed their their brain yet. Imagine what they must be experiencing if it's that bad for teachers. So I really appreciate the philosophy, the approach, certainly a sense of being welcome and being included and a part of the community at school. That's one of the biggest complaints I heard from the young people I spend time with and the ones that I raised and influenced. It's that whole feeling of, cliques and the popular kids and all that stuff that I think young people today just don't have time for it. They're just not, it's like, no, I don't want to participate in any of that foolishness. I don't want to put up with bullying and, that peer pressure to dress a certain way, wear my hair a certain way. I just want to come get my edumocation, as my mother would say, and move on to the next big thing. So it sounds like you've got some structures in place and some systems in place. The social emotional learning is so critically important. The small environment, I think, would be really appealing, especially, there are young people who have social anxiety issues, don't like to be in these big crowded spaces, and need a little more sense of a close-knit community. So thank you for the work you're doing, and congratulations on the success that you're having. Let me ask you to tell people the best way to find out more about Summit Olympus and how they can get a young person registered or at least introduced to what you have available.
We're located at 409 Puyallup Avenue in Tacoma, Washington. And our phone number is 253-444-9781. Give the front office a call. Check us out on our website, summitolympus.org. And you could also find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I said a lot of things that were amazing, and I haven't even covered our crown jewel, which is our expeditions program.
Tell us about it. Let's take a few minutes. Yeah, take a few minutes and tell us about it.
Expeditions program is amazing. We're going to have school mentor time, 4 classes a day with lunch in the middle for 6 weeks, and then we're going to pause for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, students will be engaged in some real world hands-on education. Some of them will be off campus for 2 weeks doing job shadows. Some of them will be working with community partners like TG Dubs. We have a partnership with ETC, one of our founding partners. So many groups have come in to Olympus, and we are reaching out into the community to connect our students in the community with us. So I think this is where you find your passion. I became a teacher because I had an internship in New York City in several high schools, in a non-for-profit organization, and in a hospital. And then I got to pick which route I wanted to go. And we're providing our students with the same level of care, because that's an act of care, right? Helping someone decide what their concrete next steps are, what their passions are, the INGs, what are they like doing. So I'm really excited to be the expedition school. Our students will be out in the community, engaged in the community deeply. I think we just secured a partnership with Harvard University, and some of our students will be taking Harvard classes online. So things like that, the work that we're doing. I also want to give a couple of students. We have several students who have been awarded 6-figure scholarships over the last few years. Yeah, we have an Act 6 recipient. Now we've had several Act 6 finalists. Yeah, our students work hard and they're rewarded for it, and we love to celebrate them for doing so.
So definitely no question about whether or not you're meeting whatever outcomes, standards of performance that are oftentimes applied. I think there's more of a critical eye for innovative programs and charter programs. You tend to be under a lot more scrutiny because you do things in a much more almost customized and innovative way instead of following tradition all the time.
You are so sharp. You like read right through me. I try not to, harp on that kind of success, because it's super easy to get caught up in that and start to reduce people down to their numbers of what they've expressed in certain benchmarks set on them by other people. And that's really not the goal. Where their passions are, and how prepared they feel for the world is the benchmark of success that I like to see. Are people happy? Do people leave happy? And if they're leaving happy, then we're doing good work.
Well, maybe I've got to come down. I know exactly where you are. I've got to come down and see if I can become one of those community partners and have a student come hang out with me and Tia and produce this podcast over a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. I would love that. Yes.
Yeah, we can do it. The other side of our work is advocating in the child welfare space. So if there's somebody who thinks they want to do social work or social justice advocacy, we could take them into the courtrooms with us too, right?
No, honored and excited.
That's always fun.
Let's do it. Thank you.
So thank you so very much again, Mr. Clarke.
Thank you, Carol.
Anthony, thank you so much. Anthony Clarke, Principal, Summit Olympus. Thank you very much for being here to tell us about this beautiful program, and congratulations again on the success stories. We're looking forward to hearing much more about you and maybe having some of your students involved with the Freedom Summer Symposium next spring. We'll definitely follow up with you on that.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
And thank you everybody for watching and listening. So yeah, that's called watching. Watching and listening to the Black Robe podcast tonight. We've been talking with Principal Anthony Clarke from Summit Olympus here in Tacoma. And there's still time to get your young person introduced and maybe even enrolled in this amazingly innovative, effective program of education. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Black Robe podcast.